Welcome to another edition of Through My Lens. I'm Karen Jackson, and all throughout the month, I've been doing this special series, a Sheroes Survivor series, and it's part of my participation in the Research Hers project, which is an important project. It is focusing on the importance of women researchers in our fight against cancer, and it's also about helping to bring awareness to the importance of research and the services that are available. And so today I am really excited to have Dr. Singupa, and she is in the Department of Neurology at the University of Cincinnati, and she is a neurologist. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm a neurologist.
Okay. And you're going to have to tell us what that is all about, but we thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. Why did you want to be a part of this discussion today?
So I am a neuro-oncologist. That means I see brain tumor patients. I also have a translational research lab.
Okay.
I do research on pediatric brain tumors called medulloblastoma. I also do research on brain tumors like gliomas and glioblastoma.
Mm-hmm.
Also study other cancers like melanoma and lung cancer. So as a researcher, I do all of those things.
Okay. And tell me, how long have you been involved in this work?
I have been involved in this work since I finished training, and I trained in the Harvard system. So back in, I would say 2010, I started doing research in brain tumors, and then shifted my focus in the last 4 or 5 years to also include some of the other cancers.
And so I have to ask you this before we get started in some of the details. Explain to me, why was this important for you to get involved in this work?
So I have always been interested in brain tumors. When I was a child, I lost one of my close friends to a brain tumor. So I really wanted to be part of that journey and understand how one could perhaps help with preventing or treating brain tumors.
And tell me, what has been the most impactful thing that you've learned through your research?
So in the past 3 years, we were able to develop a really interesting compound along the pipeline that's effective in melanoma, lung cancer, and pediatric brain cancer. And we patented that work while I was still at Emory. And the drug is very helpful in decreasing the doses of radiation one needs, and also in helping tumors that don't tend to respond to immunotherapy that well to respond to it. We're trying to understand the biology of how that is occurring, but it's something that's patented, and we're in the process of forming our own startup company.
Oh, wow. And what is the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal is to have this compound, if it's safe, to be used in sort of a whole different array of cancer patients. And it does work in some of the brain tumors, and it does work in lung and melanoma, lung cancer and melanoma.
Mm-hmm. And tell me, why is research so important in the fight against cancer, in all the forms of cancer?
It is important to think out of the box, because there is no magic, excuse me, there's no magic bullet approach. And so we have to think of ways that we can target cancer or prevent cancer from occurring, or basically screen people early so that we pick up things early and can treat. So research is fundamental in understanding how we can do all of these things.
And according to some of the latest statistics, U.S. cancer deaths have decreased by 26% from 1991 to 2015. What do you think are some of the main causes for that?
So, of the cancer deaths decreasing overall,
Hmm.
if you think of breast cancer, there are lots of different treatments that are now available. In terms of some of the other cancers, immunotherapies have come on the scene. There's also better screening for cancer. So these things have helped. But in certain cancers, like the one that I'm trying to deal with, glioblastoma,
Hmm.
we don't have that luxury. And the number of deaths have not decreased with that cancer, really.
Oh, wow. Wow. So explain to me, when you talk about this brain cancer, how does that impact the individual's quality of life?
So it can impact them in many ways. So depending on where in the brain the tumor grows, it can impact that function. So for example, if the tumor grows aggressively in the speech area, it'll affect the way that you can communicate. If it grows in the area of vision, you might lose your eyesight. If you get it growing in the area you, where the brain helps you move, you might lose the ability to walk. You might have severe headaches from it, vomiting from it, problems with walking, problems with thinking clearly. So not only does it affect the patient, it also affects the caregiver.
And let's talk about the caregiver, because I think that's a very important, the support system that is needed in this fight against cancer. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, the caregiver, we often forget about them, but they're an integral part of the well-being and the journey that any patient goes through in cancer. These could be family members or very close friends of people. And the problem is that we don't have enough support or infrastructure for them, either to receive counseling or to get support services so that they can help the the patient better. So it's an important thing to recognize, and there's often a thing called caregiver fatigue or burnout, and that's because sometimes these people do so much that they do get completely exhausted.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned about the different side effects and things for individuals with the brain cancer. Are there things that we can do to alleviate or minimize our chances of contracting this unfortunate disease?
Unfortunately, with glioblastoma, they're sporadic, so there's nothing you could do. It's not necessarily preventable. It's a relatively rare cancer compared to other cancers, but still, that would be, there's nothing to prevent them with.
Wow. Now, do you see more African Americans or people of color contracting this disease versus other groups?
No, I don't.
You have not. Wow. And so let's talk about, you mentioned about the importance of screenings and early detection. How does that impact individuals who may be facing this diagnosis?
Okay, so screening and early detection is better for cancers that are more prevalent and common. So, for example, breast cancer being a good example of that. In glioblastomas that are rare, that doesn't really make sense from many perspectives. Whether one thinks of it from a patient perspective, because you would need to do brain scans, so you wouldn't necessarily do that. I think early detection is key, because often people have problems with their speech, with severe headaches, and they get triaged in a way that delays the diagnosis. Key is to diagnosing these things early and to recognize these things.
So you mentioned.
Sorry, what we're trying to do is myself and one of the neurosurgeons at the University of Cincinnati, Dr. Jonathan Forbes, are in the process of writing a book for the University of Cincinnati Press, which will be an open access ebook for patients and their caregivers and for the sort of emergency room physicians, internists, to see what presentations are, patients and their journeys, and also the relevant anatomy of the tumor and also the imaging related to the tumor. So we will have this book, ebook, accessible. In addition, it will have links to look for trials and also other things to help the patient and their family.
So, and that's what I was going to speak about a little bit. If well, the first question is, what are some, you mentioned about speech, you mentioned about loss of memory. What are some other signs that someone may need to pay attention to?
Yeah. So the reason why neuro-oncology is kind of important. So a neurologist who knows who can do the oncology for the brain tumor patients is, a lot of these patients might have seizures. Epilepsy is part of it. So you need somebody who can manage both.
Okay.
And also knows how to rehab a patient. So, for example, if they're having problems with their speech therapy, physical walking issues, physical therapy, problems in performing tasks or coordinating tasks, occupational therapy. So we link people up to services as well that they need. It's not just treatment. It's the overall well-being.
Okay. And I know you mentioned about trials and things like that. How can individuals find out about those kind of resources?
So the NIH has what's called clinicaltrials.gov, and you can type in your cancer type, and it will show you what kind of trials that are being carried out at various institutions.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you um, about racial disparities in the healthcare system overall. We talked a little bit about the statistics showing that there's been declines in the overall death rate of Americans, but African Americans and people of color may not have experienced those same benefits. And how important is research to this fight against cancer?
It is important. I actually did work while I was at Emory. I'm looking at the financial toxicity of navigating brain tumor patients within the systems in Georgia.
Okay.
We definitely saw discrepancies there. And the problem is there are definite sort of disparities in various things. It's not just a question of finances, it's also a question of access and understanding the access. So those are the other, I think, bigger issues.
And how can research impact those issues?
So it will basically show us how we would need to divert resources to make things more equitable. But the problem nowadays is that with the current until there are serious healthcare reforms, it's going to be difficult.
And we know that is something that's an ongoing issue in our community about access to health care. And I think that's why it's so important for organizations like the American Cancer Society to be able to offer services to individuals who may not have the financial wherewithal to get the thorough services and the screenings that's needed.
Yes, um, that's a big thing, and also, you know, the understanding of what the information is. So, for example, if we think of the vaccination
Mm,
program, there are all those anti-vaxxers, who should have access to immunizations for their kids but don't use them.
absolutely.
They, in the cancer world, there are people who say, "Oh, I don't need to be screened. I'm okay. You know, I've got better things to do with my time." So it's
Mm,
just a question of, oh, this person from this background, socioeconomic background, this ethnicity. It's a whole slew of factors, actually.
absolutely. I
And
think,
also access. I mean, it's been great having those mobile mammogram carts.
mhm,
Most people don't have the time to take half a day out to go in for a mammogram, you know.
mhm,
Mobile trucks, they're thinking, oh my goodness, I better get this done. It's right outside my door, right? So
right.
it's making healthcare accessible for all without penalties.
Mhm. And removing the barriers.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the prejudices, not only within the sort of within how other people perceive each other, but
Mhm.
themselves. I mean, we each have our own things that we think, oh no, I just really don't want to do this.
And I think fear also plays an important factor in going to get the proper screenings because I mean when you hear the C word, regardless if it's breast cancer or any cancer, it can be very alarming and very fearful because you
Yeah,
just don't know.
yeah. The thing though to remember is that some of the cancers now have become like a chronic disease, and there are some things that carry a much worse prognosis and with fewer cures, if you like, than
Mm,
the cancers do. So I think that to get rid of some of these notions that some people have, and that no, just because you have this doesn't mean you have to sort of give up and not fight. You might be able to have a good quality of life for a long time.
absolutely. And that was really the importance of this series is like you said to provide information so individuals know what resources and programs are out there to help them in their fight, but then also just to highlight the importance of why research is needed. I want to ask you before we wrap up our conversation, talk to me a little bit about the number of women researchers in this fight against cancer.
Um, there are a lot of women researchers in the fight against cancer, and there's some fantastic ones in all of the institutions in the US. And, I think a lot of us do this because we have personal stories and personal interests. And so everyone that I know is very committed to their cause.
And we really appreciate your commitment. We know that, like you said, the type of cancer that you are basically researching a lot has a lot to do with some rarities, things that are not seen. So we really appreciate you spending some time with us. Any final comments or anything you would like to share with the audience?
Well, I think that the American Cancer Society advocacy platforms are fantastic in reaching wider audiences. And I think it's very important to sort of highlight women from various minorities who have definitely made an impact and a difference in the fight against cancer.
Well, thank you so much for all that you do in helping to fight cancer. And we'd love to have you come back for another segment and talk a little bit more about this next phase of research and programming that you're doing to help save lives.
Absolutely. You might be interested in a project that I'm developing, which uses an app with the School of Art and Architecture and Design at the University of Cincinnati,
Okay.
breast cancer patients, who have injury to their brain from chemotherapy. So we're doing that kind of study too. So we have laboratory-based research and clinical research. So happy to discuss that anytime, Karen. Thank you for your
Thank you so much. And I will
comment.
talk with you about that app. I want to hear more about that.
Okay, will do. You
Thank you.
take care now, okay?
Okay. Have a great afternoon. God
You
bless.
too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye bye.